Welcome to the Getting the Most Out of Life Groups video series. I'm Ben Blakey, lead pastor at Compass Bible Church, Treasure Valley. This is Charlie Matz, one of the pastors here at the church, and one of your specific tasks is you oversee life groups.
Yes.
And we're filming this video series because life groups are such an important part of our church. They're one of the pillars, really, of involvement. If you are a part of Compass Bible Church, Treasure Valley, we want you to be in a life group. So the goal for these videos is to help you understand why that is and what we hope you get out of life groups and just how you can get the most out of life groups. So this first video is called Making the Big Church Small. But let's just start with this question. What are life groups all about? What is the purpose? What is the mission statement, so to speak, of life groups?
Well, this is the thing that we really want you to keep thinking about over and over again, is that life groups are the hubs of fellowship and discipleship in the church. Bottom line, that's what we look to life groups to be in this church.
Right, and we'll be saying that each video, so hopefully by the end of that, if somebody asks you on the patio, what's up with life groups? They're the hubs of fellowship and discipleship in our church. And we'll even work through that definition throughout these videos. First, we want to talk about this idea of hubs, because you might say, well, why isn't our church just a hub of fellowship and discipleship?
Yeah, well, the idea is that life groups can really be where the life of the church is really, you think of a heart and pumping the blood through the body. Life groups really are that for the church. There's all kinds of things that we do as a church, but instead of having disparate programs throughout the church, we have really this hub of life groups, and then all these other things really connect back to that, so that those relationships of discipleship and fellowship, they can grow deeper and deeper. So you think of a men's retreat or a women's retreat. Those are really at some point going to have a component of being life group centric. So that's the picture you get of the hub and maybe the spokes of the various things that we're doing.
Yeah. And our church, even pretty quickly when we started, was a larger than average church.
Yeah.
So it's hard sometimes to get to know people just at church, or it's a big church. So having a smaller group where you can get to know people is a super helpful thing, where you can go deeper. That's why, yes, our church is a hub, but we want these smaller hubs within the church so it's easier for people to connect. We want to, as we're saying in this video, make the big church small. Well, so in one sense, though, we're not apologizing for being a big church. There's some reasons why being a large church is not a bad thing. Well,
yeah.
Why is that, Pastor
Yeah,
Charlie?
so let's start by understanding that it's not a bad thing. I think you could easily turn to Acts chapter 2, verse 41. We see the culmination of this public evangelism here. So those who received his word were baptized, and there were added that day about 3,000 souls. The number 3,000 is important in that description, but I think there's a more important word there, souls. We're talking about souls here. We've got a church full of people who are souls, and that's why we're not really going to apologize for being a big church, because we've got a lot of souls that we want to minister to. So that's the first reason.
Well, and that's where church growth in some ways almost became a bad idea, because there are churches that, hey, they want to grow just for numbers or whatever reason. That's not what we care about. We do and we should care about souls. You should. Listen to me now. You should always want to be a part of a growing church, because your desire should always be that your church is reaching people. I mean, how much would our church grow if every family at our church just reached one person in a given year? I mean, there'd be a lot of growth. And that shouldn't be an unreasonable thing for us to be praying for, that everybody's reaching somebody. So as a church that grows, you need some places where you can go deeper. Now, part of the reason we want those smaller groups is we feel like there's certain needs that can be met in the context of those groups. Let's start with spiritual needs. How do these smaller groups within the larger church, these hubs of fellowship and discipleship, how do they help spiritual needs be met in the church?
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll get into that more in depth in videos 2 and 3 when we talk about fellowship and discipleship specifically. But really, we want to make the point right up front that you get out what you put in. Really, in a life group, this is a place where you can start to live out the one another's in Scripture. And that's a big part of life groups. Where else are you really going to start living out the one another's that we see throughout Scripture?
Yeah, you get out what you put in. Remember that. And also, that's where you need other people and other people need you. And life groups give that opportunity for those healthy relationships to happen. Another thing is, we need to be known.
Yeah.
We need to know what's really going on with other people. We need other people to know what's really going on with us. And small groups, sometimes not even just the meetings themselves, but then the relationships that form from within those groups provide opportunities where people can really be known. But also, life groups are a very helpful way to meet physical or practical needs as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I often say to people when we're talking about life groups, I haven't met a young family yet that was having a baby that was in a life group that didn't have some kind of meal train after that baby was born. There's tons of physical needs that are met in the church through things like meals or hospital visits or care when someone is dealing with something difficult and they just need people to show up and to help them. Well, there's no better way that I've seen in a church than these smaller groups where people can know what those needs are and be the first responders really to those physical needs.
And you don't know when some problem is going to arise in your life. But when you build this kind of community by being a part of one of these groups, you are better prepared for when those things happen, because then you don't need to get involved.
Right.
And then people can come alongside you. You're already involved. So that's really step one. Why do we have these? Why do we want to make the big church small? A lot of value in just the needs that can be met spiritually, physically, being known. And remember, one takeaway is you're going to get out what you put in these smaller groups within the church, these hubs of fellowship and discipleship.